Welcome back to TEYARA SMP, a TNP Limitless 7 series, and we are currently back in the mine area because, well, I finally remembered to get all of my rewards, and I meant to do the calculation earlier so I don't make a fool of myself on recording, but this is what, 12 by 9, so that's 90 plus 18, so that's 108 unique items just in this barrel alone. And then we have just a few more in the overflow over here, and I think this is all from just breaking stuff outside, but still, I don't think anybody would appreciate if I went through all of these items individually. So, I did that off camera, and I figured you would all understand, because there's just so much. There's just so much. Anyway, moving right along, you may recall that last episode we were working on the Sawmill, and, well, I still haven't finished it out in creative mode, like the aesthetic bits, but we have started thinking about... Ooh, Undead Knight. Oh, Undead Knight! Okay, alright, we'll just take care of you right now, because you shouldn't be here. Alright, there we go. So as I was saying, I finished out the mechanism of the sawmill last episode, as you may recall. I've made a couple of tweaks to it, as we're about to see, theoretically, and, well, I was going to put it on this part of the river, but it's massive. It's so much bigger than I expected, because, like, in creative mode, you've got an infinite plane of, well, infiniteness. Scale stops mattering. And, well, it's really big. It's something like 17 by 19 by, like, 13 or something like that. It's big. It didn't really fit here, because no matter where I decided to try and put it, where I was imagining I would terraform the river out a bit more, and I'm still going to terraform the river, don't get me wrong, but no matter where I put it, it always ended up getting too close to this building, or to this building, and it got to the point, I really need to do something about these chickens, but it got to the point that I figured, okay, well, I can't really keep going further that way, because then I'm going to start interfering with the bridge, and I kind of want to leave some of the generated structures here, so I did the next best thing. We decided to come around the corner, and we're going to put it here. Now, there is still some terraforming to be done. Like, I'm going to widen this part of the river just a little bit to simulate some more erosion. I don't know how far back we're going to go, because I'm still going to leave that in there as a little pool. But then we're also going to take out that area with all the flowers. You can see that I've got some occultism stuff over there that I'm probably going to make its own building at some point in time. But for right now, it's just circles on the ground. Anyway, so this is going to be eroded away, and then, you know, obviously we're not going to have this wall here, so there's going to be just a little bit of shaping that I need to do to make this river make a little bit more sense. But I put in the water wheels just to make sure that my theory was correct, and if we take a look here, the way I'm accomplishing this is we have these trapdoors. Some are spruce ranch trapdoors. And the nice thing about that is we are using the waterlogged property, if you'll pardon my bouncing around, we're using the waterlogged property of spruce trapdoors to keep the water on the outside of this, and then I put flowing water. I originally had some blocks under here, so I put some flowing water in, and now they're all just turning the water mills. It works. It makes sense. The one thing is, and I don't know if this is just a purely visual thing or what, but you can see the water is kind of backflowing here, and that is just because that's how flowing water kind of works around water sources that are waterlogged, I guess. It doesn't seem to be causing any issues. I mean, this water wheel clearly has 512 stress unit capacity, which is what we're expecting. And it's also not like, I think because the majority of blocks are flowing from right to left, then the one block that's flowing left to right isn't enough to offset this and cause it to turn the other way and break because the gears are, you know, not turning in the right directions. I mean, the shafts are not turning in the right directions. So this is how we are getting water wheels to spin in what appears to be, you know, just a totally placid river surface. except for this part, which will become placid when I do terraforming and fill it all back in. But we have a schematic cannon, we have a checklist that is now complete, 11 pages once again, and I gotta stop making things out of relatively expensive blocks because this steel ended up taking a little bit of time and a whole bunch of create stuff, but at least the create stuff is all functional. That makes sense. So I'm going to clear my inventory of chicken eggs, and then we are going to attempt to have ourselves a little bit of a time lapse just as soon as the day switches over. Now, I would have loved to be able to do this using replay mod, and I tried it again, but despite the fact that we're in a different version of Minecraft, and I'm gonna have to fix some of the stuff manually afterwards because I'm using some functional blocks as aesthetic blocks, and unfortunately, they're not connecting properly, but that's okay, I can go back and do that later. But I wanted to do this in replay mod, and it seemed like it was going to work better than the time I tried it in the previous series. But unfortunately, once again, it decided to crash itself or use too much memory or something like that. And I suspect that if I'm trying to use it in anything other than vanilla Minecraft, there is no way I'm going to get replay mod to work. And that's fine. We can still use this method of time-lapsing that I figured out last series as well. And I think this looks pretty good. I mean, sure, we're going to have to cut a few times as it gets to night, and I'm going to have to sleep, but that's a known quantity, and certainly easier than trying to struggle through why replay mod isn't working. So, I hope you enjoyed this time lapse, and then we'll talk about some of the things that I need to fix as we get to the stuff that I need to fix. Now, astonishingly, I was able to finish this in one Minecraft day, which I did not expect, given the number of blocks that I had to prepare for this, even as bare bones as it is. But now the mechanism is on the server, and I could totally test it out if I wanted to, except I don't. I want to finish the build in creative mode first, just to make sure that I can, paste everything in, and not worry about things having moved, or timers having changed, etc. Now, the one thing that I noticed immediately in the replay, or the time-lapse I should say, because we're not using replay mod as I very clearly mentioned, we have a whole bunch of fluid pipes that I'm using purely aesthetically, and also same with the fluid transfers. They're acting as sort of a bracket, if you will, to connect in, but the problem is they did not connect correctly. So I wonder, can I do this with hammer, or am I going to have to break and replace everything? And okay, so that does actually work. The problem is going to be getting it to connect to that. So can I, no, okay, you only want me to connect to the sides that I can actually see. Okay, alright, whatever, it doesn't cost me that much, and it's a lot easier to just break them all and then replace them all, so we'll do that. And like I said, I just thought that these would be sort of nice braces for the lift that we're going to have here, or that we do have here, that's just not currently active. That's not the right block. Alright, where are we? Fluid pipe. So you can see it just kind of nicely hooks up to everything else and acts almost as a rail. And it does not help that I still have the flowing water here. So I think for the top ones, I'm just going to have to put these in, like, from above, and then worry about everything from below later. Something like this. That'll suffice. Very easy repair job. So that wasn't a problem that I had to worry about in creative mode because, well, the paste happens instantaneously. Everything just works, quote-unquote. The stressometer, why are you registered? Oh, because everything's on, because it doesn't, the clutch isn't actually registering. And I meant to bring an extra clutch block just so that I could put that in. Let me see. That should just be a simple toggle here. So I'm going to pop in here. I'm going to figure out where the clutch is. Where's the clutch? Where's the clutch? Where's the clutch? Here's the clutch. So I think if I just break and replace this torch, then we should be fine. Yep, everything has just ground to a halt. That is a lot easier than the way that I did that in creative mode, which was, I just changed the frequency and then changed it back. I didn't mean to fall all the way down here. But this is the next area of our repair, so this, oh, I don't have a screwdriver on me. Maybe I have a screwdriver on me. It's fine if I don't, it's just easier with the screwdriver. Okay, so thankfully, that's also not pointed in the correct direction. So, we just need to put this back down. So, we just need to put this back down, facing that way, please. Yes, alright. And pause while the thing is like that. There we go, set to 200. So now that's the correct frequency for our lift. And then lastly, the other thing that we might need to fix, or not, because it's actually worked correctly. Oh no, of course it's worked correctly, because, oh, no, because it's also facing the wrong way. Alright, well, thankfully, I also have some excess andesite casing here. So what we're going to do is just get in the correct position. And I might have to break some of this black concrete just so that we can see better, but that's fine. We're going to go ahead and break this. It's okay if it's set to 10, because that's what we actually need. Where'd it go? I mean, don't get me wrong, I have... Oh, it's on the belt. Of course it is. Sometimes create is annoying because it will do things a little too well. Alright, so there we go. Now the clock is pointed in the direction it should be. It's already off thanks to the clutch being on, and I think everything's fine. Oh yeah, right. I need to change the movement mode to place anchor only when destroyed, and I need to do that on our lift as well. But before I move on, I want to replace this concrete. So that's good now. Steal that back. And finally, do the same thing over here, which I think is just under here. Now, you'll also notice that I'm using some of these reinforced blast blocks just because I thought that looked a little bit better. Here you are. Okay. And we need to switch that to place when destroyed. So now, when it gets to the bottom, well, and once this is all water, then this log is going to just be floating on the surface until we pick it up, and then, put it back down. So I think that's all of the repairs that I need to make to this build right now, and obviously I'm not testing it, because we don't really need to right this second. I'm just kind of going over everything and making sure the frequencies are fine. Part of the issue is that, as you can see, we, the load distance, I don't know if that's something that I can change in a configuration setting, but you can see that the frequencies sort of pop in and out, like within a chunk of the actual transmitter. And so that makes debugging just a little bit harder. I would like to be able to change that. I might be able to change that. I was able to change the storage drawers in, the storage room over there. And let's see, everything else should be fine. Yes, that filter's perfectly fine. So that's good. That's very confidence boosting, because that means that all of the filters that I've added probably just retained their NBT data, and they seem to have. That's very good. Now you'll notice that compared to the prototype on the creative mode, it's a little bit shorter. And that's because, well, despite being in the infiniteness of creative mode, I kind of took a look at how tall it looked, and I was thinking, oh, what am I going to be able to do with the roof? Because right now I'm planning on sort of a sloped thing, almost like a 1/2 kind of slope. Basically using slabs for the roof. And it looked ridiculous, or in my mind's eye, it looked ridiculous with this being 2 blocks higher, and this as well, I think, was 2 to 3 blocks higher, because it just made the building so much taller than it looked like it needed to be, and I just didn't like it. So I made the crane shorter, I adjusted the timings accordingly. I might still have to patch timings if the server doesn't cooperate, but hopefully the next time we see this on screen, it is going to be the actual finished build and testing it. I'm not going to say that's this week, but that's what I hope. Yes, one more thing. So I was thinking, well, cool, I have this machine that's going to strip all of my logs, but where am I actually going to get the logs? And then I realized, okay, well, I'm probably going to expand the build out a few more blocks this way, rectangular. We're going to have a path that comes up here and just sort of naturally meets up with the build, and then continues on over that way. So what I'm thinking is the village is, well, it's going to be a village now, but there's a villager village over there, and we're just going to have our little town slash, I don't know what you want to call it, but we're going to have it wrap around this river and extend down that way. And what I intend to do is have a facility way out there, beyond render distance currently, but we're going to have something further down the river that's basically going to be a whole bunch of trees, and we're going to have like some kind of a log cabin probably, and in that log cabin is where I'm actually going to be growing the trees in botany pots connected to ender drawers. And the other side of the ender drawer is going to be in that little extension that we're going to put onto this building here. So basically, although we're making the trees over there, we're transporting them instantly over here so that they're accessible. And then I'll probably chunk load the area down the river, just because that's probably going to be necessary to keep it growing all the time. And so that's going to be the entire sawmill. Now I have to figure out what I want to do for the next part of the video, because that was actually a lot faster than I expected. So I was reminded of a couple of things that I could end up doing around the base. I mean, yes, I could actually totally finish the base. That would sure be nice. But one of the things that I said 2 videos ago was that I could make a set of doors for the foundry, and that'll mean that I can, start putting walls in this place and making it look better, and, actually having an enclosed building for once. I mean, technically speaking, the mine is an enclosed building, but the upstairs part sure isn't. Anyway, so I built out these doors. And we also have a player detector, which, just causes the doors to open automatically when we get close enough, as one would kind of hope for automatic doors. This is a lot nicer than what I was originally thinking with the pressure plates, but one thing that I wanted to avoid using a pressure plate for is because, well, you can see that these doors physically swing open. And I kind of think they're just a little bit too fast, so what we're going to do is adjust the mechanism real time, but basically what we have here is a player detector, or no, an entity detector from Cyclic. It is set to only detect players within 3 blocks X, 3 blocks Y, and 3 blocks Z of the detector. So it's a cube, and it's actually, I think, 7 by 7 by 7 centered on it, because I think that's a radius. And then we set the threshold to greater than the limit of 0. So if any player comes within that range, then the door will open. Now, if I open up this shadow preview, the vertical component doesn't really exist, but you can see that we have the horizontal component. And I'm going to sleep real quick. But that was a really convenient thing to help me debug. So then, after the cyclic entity detector, we also have just some redstone coming out the back to a pulse repeater into just any old solid block. I happen to have a silt block in my inventory, so I was lazy, and this is going to be below the floor, so we don't actually care what the block is. But then behind this is a sequenced gear shift. So that is what's causing the doors to open actually to 60. I tried lesser angles and the gap just wasn't adequate in my opinion. So 60 was kind of the furthest that I wanted to go out. This is still going to protrude into the walkway that I'm going to put in, if not this episode, maybe next episode, because I want to do some more aesthetic stuff around the base. But that's the door. And then, like I said, I feel that that's just a little bit too fast, so what I'm going to do is come in here to the last encased chain drive that we have here. We're going to pop that off. And then we're going to put this here. And if you'll recall, we have, this chain drive just coming out from the shaft that's feeding both the mechanical crafter as well as the elevator system. And so that's a good way to split out create power. Now that we have the adjustable chain gear shift there, we should be able to put a redstone block down, and what that means is this is now powered, and when we get closer, this will open at half the speed, because we're not powering the thing that is powering the rest of the chain drives, we're powering the output. And so that means it's slower. And I'm going to just turn off the outline here. Ah, yes. Now, the reason I put in this pulse repeater instead of just using a regular repeater or doing whatever is that I wanted this to only trigger when a player initially walks into this area. Like, if somebody happens to come over and then just sort of lingers at the doorway, I didn't want this thing, like, repeatedly triggering. And it also occurs to me that I could have just done this with a normal repeater instead of the pulse repeater. I think I just like having a single pulse better than I like having that block constantly powered for whatever reason. It doesn't really matter right now, but if I, say, had some redstone on top of this, that could be more sensitive if this was powered. Anyway, I'm rambling. So, that's a little short component that we've done here. I think I might change the design of the door just a little bit, because being made out of wall blocks, for one thing, means that there's some flickering that happens when it opens up, and we've currently got it set to only place near the initial angle, so it's only a solid when it's shut. When it opens up, well, these walls still become like the end walls or whatever. They kind of separate where this middle part opens up, and you saw that we had a neat sort of tooth design where half goes with one door and half goes with the other door. And I think I like that part, but I don't like how this door looks so blocky. And so I think what I'm going to do is replace some of this with framed blocks, or go with solids instead of walls, and then replace some of those solids with framed blocks so that we can get just a little bit more detailing here. So like if I were to turn it into the framed double stair right here, we could get some slopage on the inside potentially, or we could do like a half double here, and then a double stair here, and then another like vertical half double panel or something like that here. And basically we could just get some nicer curvature than we currently have existing. Now, as far as the outside wall around the door goes, we're also going to add a little bit more shape there, because we basically, originally I was going to make this outside radius on the bottom one larger than on the top, and in order to make this door as wide as it is, I had to come one back in, so we're currently under the regular circle up above. And so, I think if I just come one more block out, and I just do a little bit of detailing work around the door, that'll look just a little bit nicer. I don't know if that's going to be in chisels and bits or framed blocks, but we'll sort of play that by ear, and I think that could look really nice. Now, for the remainder of the episode, and that's not really going to be done during this particular recording session because I have some more things to gather, I think the next thing that we might work on is up here. I said I was going to have a create blasting fan setup up here. And so I think that'd be a nice idea to get in here, get in the last bit of create functionality that I think I'm going to put in here. Oh, and one last thing. I don't remember when I put this in. It might have been in a previous clip, but I have a rolling mill that I added down here because I needed some rolled steel tubes for making the steel for the sawmill. So now that is everything that I have done in the foundry forge area so far. Well, as you can see for this last segment, I have done some aesthetic work around the actual forge part itself, so you can see that we've added some nether bricks and blast bricks. You can also see that we've removed our initial Embers setup, and now we've got the pressure refinery all hooked up, and what we have is an ejector out the back, which bounces off this mirror relay and into the ember funnel, which now we have an extra copper cell in the mix so that we're storing just a little bit more as backup power. And I believe, because yes, we are currently empty, if I just put some more in here, we'll get to see the mirror bouncing action. Oh yeah, and that still looks really cool. And of course, we still have the relay setup going. I don't know if I want to add another one right here in the middle. It seems like it'd be excessive, but I mean, I might just do it anyway. And finally, this is the most interesting part. So we have our create mod furnace, or blasting setup. You can't really see it, but there's a depot down here that's been camouflaged a little bit with some of these floorboards set up to look like magma. And if I go ahead and put my inputs here, we're going to do some cross-draw zinc. You can see currently I have 2 advanced hopper upgrades in here, and the reason I did that is because that means that this barrel has a higher throughput when it's outputting. I just sort of guessed that putting multiples in would allow me to output items a certain multiplicative factor faster, and when it was just the 1 advanced hopper upgrade, it was 16 items, at least until a buffer backed up, and we have a high throughput hopper back behind here, which is then going into the chute, which then drops the items into the depot. And then under the framed floorboard here, we also have a brass funnel that is set up to remove items that cannot be smelted. And so this should work for the most part. This could get dicey around smelting up stone, so I'm just going to try to avoid doing that. But then it outputs to here, because there's another depot under here that we are then using the item extractor from Embers to take out and put into this mangrove gold barrel at the bottom, which we're going to just upgrade with only stack upgrades, because, well, we expect to have more stacks down here as a stockpile. But let me just put in this zinc as an example, and you can see that it's already out. We can see, if we look at some of these chutes, that we have 32 items in here, so there are 32 items in the depot. Once this is upgraded to, I'm going to probably go straight to netherite, because although diamond would have enough slots to add 2 more hopper upgrades, diamond doesn't fit the aesthetic. Netherite at least blends in, but the problem is netherite's expensive, and you get the idea. So we already have 32 zinc, and if we just wait a little bit, we should see the other 32 filter on in. Yep. And so that's a relatively quick system. At the very least, it's quicker than waiting for the 2 blast furnaces I have down below to go. And moreover, this does not consume fuel. We also have our lava source, cheeky, hidden under this framed floorboard that looks like a magma again. Oh, and I also used some of these charred logs as decorative blocks, because I thought it was a nice sort of transition out of the, the magma. And then we also have some basalt to kind of look like, fuel that has not properly burned, or maybe some slag. I'm not entirely sure which would be in a forge, but you get the idea. We also have, you can just barely see them, a couple of chain link trapdoors up there that is supposed to act as sort of a vent and, kind of go along with the narrative that we're powering this system using the updraft. And I think that's just about it. Like, everything else is just, I've framed things in with the blast bricks, and this is going to need a little bit of work. Like, I think I might end up replacing this with a framed double stair, I think it's called, where we can then make the outer part of the nether bricks and the inner part of the blast brick, and I think that'll just look a little bit better. We're going to do some more shaping down the road, but I believe that is all of the functional updates for this episode. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified, and as always, I'm looking forward to your feedback in the comments below. And with that, I will catch you on the flip side. Thanks for watching, everybody. In the upper left is a video you might like, or the next video in the series. In the lower left is the series playlist, and on the right is my icon by which you can subscribe. Thanks again for watching.